Think about the last time you bought, like, a really high-end face cream or a luxury serum.
Oh, yeah, the really expensive stuff.
Exactly. Before that glass bottle even touched your skin, or
Yeah.
before you even read the ingredients, your brain had already decided it was worth the $100 price tag.
Right, completely subconsciously.
Yeah. And it made that decision based almost entirely on the specific physical resistance of the cardboard box it came in.
It is wild how that works.
It really is. So, welcome to the deep dive. We have custom tailored this session specifically for you, the learner.
That's right.
Whether you are in the trenches right now launching a direct-to-consumer beauty brand or prepping for a high-stakes supply chain meeting, or if you're just insanely curious about the hidden mechanics of the retail world, you are in the right place.
Absolutely. And we are looking at a highly detailed guide today. It was published on March 23, 2026 by Laurent Fabian over at Ingredientsage.
Really great piece.
Yeah, it's titled Cosmetic Boxes Wholesale. And what makes this text so compelling is that it treats packaging not just as an afterthought, but as a primary driver of a product's commercial viability.
So our mission today is to extract the ultimate cheat sheet from this source. Because we aren't just talking about, folding pieces of cardboard here.
No, not at all.
We are decoding the actual mechanisms, how material choices, supply chain dynamics, and eco-certifications directly dictate your time to market.
And your consumer trust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And ultimately your margins. Okay, let's unpack this, and yes, the pun is absolutely intended. Where do we even start when building a product's physical home?
Well, you have to start with the structural foundation. I mean, before you can worry about global shipping logistics or like vibrant color palettes, you are choosing the literal architecture.
The actual bones of the box.
Right. The material sets the entire trajectory of the product life cycle. So the guide breaks this down into 3 core categories, starting with the industry workhorse, which is paperboard folding cartons.
I see the source mentions these are typically between 12 and 24 point thickness. But, what does that actually feel like in the real world?
That's a great question. So a 12-point thickness is roughly the feel of a premium, sturdy greeting card.
Okay, so flexible, but it holds its shape.
Exactly. And then when you move up to 24-point, you're looking at something closer to a rigid cereal box.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, and paperboard is highly cost-effective for multi-SKU programs.
Wait, break that down for me. Multi-SKU.
So meaning if your brand has, say, 20 different shades of lipstick, paperboard allows you to house all of them efficiently while maintaining a very crisp, clean, retail-ready print surface.
Right, so it's the reliable baseline. But the source also talks about corrugated outer boxes.
Exactly.
When does a brand need to step up to corrugated?
With corrugated is all about transit survivability. It's the fluted paper sandwiched between 2 flatliners.
So basically a standard brown shipping box.
Right. Think of your Amazon box, but refined. If you are shipping directly to consumers, lightweight, durable protection is essential to prevent crush damage.
Because nobody wants a crushed $100 serum.
Exactly. And what's clever is a hybrid approach the guide highlights. Brands will often use a tough, custom-printed, corrugated outer shell just to survive the mail system.
Oh, and then pair it with something else inside.
Yes, they pair it with a sleek paperboard inner box. It creates this premium, layered unboxing experience without incurring massive structural costs for the primary packaging.
That is smart. Which brings us to the heavyweight contender. The rigid gift boxes.
Oh, yeah, the really luxurious ones.
The unibody construction, the thick walls that don't fold flat. The source points out that these are crucial because they directly drive up the average selling price for boutique launches.
They absolutely do.
Basically, you can charge more because the box feels expensive. But I have to push back here.
Okay, go for it.
To me, a rigid box sounds like buying a luxury car just for the heavy thud of the door closing. I mean, is the high unit cost and the massive storage space required for rigid boxes really worth it just to boost the retail price? Or is that hybrid corrugated approach you just mentioned actually the smarter, modern play for e-commerce?
Well, it comes down to a psychological concept called transference.
Transference.
Okay. The e-commerce hybrid approach is highly efficient for transit, absolutely. But a rigid box physically communicates brand elevation the exact second it touches the consumer's hands.
Just from the weight of it.
Exactly. It signals prestige through its mass.
Ah.
In a boutique launch, the consumer isn't just buying the moisturizer, they are buying a ritual.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the structural integrity, the literal physical weight of the box, the magnetic snap of a heavy closure. The consumer subconsciously transfers that physical sturdiness to the perceived chemical efficacy of the skincare serum inside.
That is wild. It justifies the premium price point before they've even seen the actual product.
Right. It's a powerful psychological tool.
Wow, transference. So the packaging is doing the heavy lifting, literally for the product's perceived value. It tricks the brain into assuming quality.
Yeah, it really does.
So let's follow the logic here. So you've invested in this heavy, premium structural foundation to justify a high price point. But a blank, heavy box just looks like a shipping brick.
Yeah, a very expensive brick.
Right. So to actually turn that weight into a luxury experience, we have to look at how light and texture interact with the surface.
Right, which takes us into the mechanics of customization. The guide delves heavily into finishes and embellishments.
Like what kind of finishes?
We are talking matte, gloss, soft touch, and water-based aqueous coatings.
Aqueous coating, what is that exactly?
So an aqueous coating is a clear, fast-drying, water-based layer that protects the ink from smudging. But the key is it still allows the paper to be easily recycled.
Oh, unlike a heavy plastic laminate.
Exactly. And then you add the tactile embellishments. Spot UV to make certain logos catch the light, foil stamping, embossing, debossing, and micro die-cut windowing.
It sounds like an art project.
It kind of is. But these aren't just visual decorations. They are tactile engagements designed to keep the consumer's hands on the box longer.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the source highlights a massive shift in how these designs are actually printed.
Yes, the printing technology is changing everything.
Right. It specifically points to digital printing and on-demand production as a total revolution for the industry.
It is a fundamental mechanical shift. I mean, historically, high-end packaging required offset printing.
Which is the old school way, right?
Yeah. Offset printing means a factory has to literally etch your design onto custom metal plates, and you need one plate for every single color you use.
That sounds incredibly expensive.
It is incredibly expensive and time-consuming. And because of that, manufacturers force brands into massive minimum order quantities.
The dreaded MOQs.
Exactly. You had to order like 50,000 boxes just to make the math work.
So if you wanted to change a single word on your ingredients list,
You had to throw away all those metal plates and start completely over.
that is brutal.
It was. But digital printing bypasses the plates entirely. It applies the ink directly to the substrate.
So it's much like a high-end industrial version of your office laser printer.
Pretty much. And because of that, it drops those minimum order quantities drastically. It allows for rapid iterations, which is just perfect for DTC launches, influencer collaborations, or highly targeted limited edition drops.
To me, this sounds like A/B testing a website, but with physical objects in the real world.
That's a great way to put it.
You could just tweak a design, print 100 boxes, and see if the soft touch matte finish sells better than the high gloss finish. But I have to stop you there.
Okay.
If I'm changing my box design every month just because digital printing makes it cheap and easy, aren't my customers going to think they bought a counterfeit? Like, how do you iterate constantly without completely diluting your brand identity?
What's fascinating here is that the data points away from brand dilution and actually toward necessary market adaptability. Well, it's not about changing your core logo or your brand's fundamental typography every week. It's about having the mechanical agility to test multiple specialized SKUs.
Okay, I see.
You keep your core visual identity anchored, but you iterate the delivery mechanism. You run pilot packaging to see how consumers react to a seasonal colorway, or you update your messaging instantly to capitalize on a viral trend.
Right, without betting the entire company on it.
Exactly. In the past, if a 50,000-unit print run failed to resonate, you were ruined by leftover inventory. Digital printing removes that financial ruin.
So it's about flexibility within a strict framework. You're not changing the soul of the brand, you're just changing its outfit to see what fits the occasion best.
That's spot on.
And without locking up all your marketing capital in a warehouse full of dead cardboard.
Mm-hmm.
But let's look at the operational reality here.
Okay, yeah.
Because a beautiful, highly agile packaging design is entirely useless if the math still bankrupts you, or if the whole system grinds to a halt because of a typo.
And that operational reality is governed by the intricate dance of MOQs, lead times, and quality control. The guide explicitly links these dynamics.
Right, because everything is connected.
Yes. We know digital prints drop MOQs, but there's an inescapable economic trade-off. Higher volumes are still what unlock the best unit pricing.
So the more you buy, the cheaper it gets per unit.
Always. If
Yeah.
you only order 500 boxes, your margin per unit is going to be incredibly tight. Furthermore, the guide stresses building strict buffers into your lead times.
For what exactly?
For artwork approvals, precise color matching, and regulatory compliance reviews. If you don't pad your schedule for these, a single misaligned barcode can cause cascading delays across your entire supply chain.
And that brings us to quality control, which the source breaks down into 3 vital stages.
Right, and you can't skip any of them.
No. You have pre-press, which is checking the digital color codes and physical dimensions before a single drop of ink is even deployed.
Super critical.
Then you have inline QC, which means actively monitoring the production integrity while the machines are running at full speed.
Yeah, making sure the colors aren't drifting on, like, the 1000th box.
Exactly. And finally, post-production, checking that the foil stamping didn't flake off and that the box can actually survive a drop test.
This raises a really important question about how a brand actually manages the people running those machines.
Yeah, how do you keep tabs on a factory halfway across the world?
Well, the source strongly recommends implementing a supplier scorecard.
A scorecard, like grading them.
Yes. You meticulously track their on-time delivery rates, their communication responsiveness, their defect percentages.
And you establish clear, pre-agreed escalation paths for when things inevitably go wrong.
Exactly.
I really like this concept. Instead of treating it like some ruthless dating app algorithm where you just swipe left on a bad vendor, it sounds more like an airplane pilot's pre-flight checklist.
That's a really good analogy.
It's about removing human emotion and assumptions from a highly complex system. You track the data so that a failure in a 10-cent cardboard insert doesn't end up grounding a $100,000 product launch.
It's risk mitigation at its finest.
But let's talk about leverage. If I'm a small DTC founder and I'm just doing a tiny pilot launch with low volume, do I really have the clout to enforce a strict scorecard?
It's tough.
Right. Can I actually demand multi-stage quality control from a massive wholesale factory, or will they just ignore my emails?
That is the exact vulnerability almost every new brand faces. You are a small fish in a massive industrial pond.
Yeah, they don't really care about my 500-unit order.
But the guide connects the dots beautifully here with a specific operational strategy. You leverage a one-stop contract manufacturing partner.
Okay, break down how that actually solves the leverage problem.
So instead of piecemealing your supply chain, buying your raw corrugated boxes from a vendor in one country, having your internal plastic inserts molded by another, and sourcing your actual cosmetic formula from a third.
Which sounds like a logistical nightmare, by the way.
Oh, it is. Instead of doing that, you use a single partner who handles the formulation, the packaging, and the QC all under one roof.
Oh, I see.
When you consolidate your spend like that, your account suddenly becomes much more valuable to that manufacturer.
Right, because you're giving them all your business, not just a fraction of it.
Exactly. That is how smaller brands reduce their operational risk. By consolidating, they gain the necessary supply chain leverage and the end-to-end traceability that would normally only be reserved for massive heritage brands.
That makes total sense. You pool your disparate resources into one big contract to punch above your weight class.
Precisely.
It forces the supplier to actually care about your pre-flight checklist because they own the entire outcome.
Yes, their success is directly tied to yours.
Now, consolidating your supply chain protects your margins and your sanity? Sure. But what protects your product's long-term viability in a market that is increasingly demanding clean, responsible labels?
That is the million-dollar question right now.
Because according to the source, sustainability is no longer an optional marketing gimmick.
No, it's not. Industry experts in the guide note that sustainability is now a strict baseline expectation.
A baseline. So the absolute minimum.
Yes, it is the price of entry, especially for clean label cosmetics. It is not a premium add-on that you can just tack on for Earth Day anymore.
Right. Consumers see right through that.
They really do. Demonstrating cradle-to-grave responsibility, meaning you can account for the physical impact of the product, from the ethical sourcing of the raw tree pulp all the way to its ultimate disposal, is the new standard.
And the source gets highly specific about the materials required to meet this standard.
It does. It mentions FSC and PEFC certifications for any wood-based materials.
And that proves the paper comes from responsibly managed forests, right, where trees are replanted rather than old-growth clear-cutting.
Exactly. And then there is PCR, or post-consumer recycled content, which the guide notes is now standard in mid to high-end lines.
But there's a structural catch with PCR, isn't there?
Unfortunately, there is. When paper is recycled, the cellulose fibers are physically chopped up and shortened.
And shorter fibers mean what?
They mean a weaker structural integrity. So a box made of 100% PCR might be incredibly eco-friendly, but it's inherently more prone to tearing or crushing than virgin paperboard.
Oh, man. So it's a balancing act.
It is a massive structural engineering challenge for your packaging supplier, which, again, is why having a competent contract partner is so vital. You have to balance the percentage of recycled content against the physics of protecting a heavy glass bottle in transit.
That is a fascinating trade-off between ecology and physics. And the guide also emphasizes water-based inks and coatings. Mechanically, why does that matter so much?
Well, traditional printing inks rely heavily on petroleum-based solvents.
Which sounds bad.
It is. Those solvents off-gas harmful, volatile organic compounds during production. And even worse, they make the cardboard incredibly difficult to repulp at a recycling facility.
Repulp, like break it back down into mush.
Yeah. Water-based inks and coatings eliminate those solvent emissions. They allow the paper fibers to break down easily in the recycling vat, ensuring that the box you designed to be recyclable actually gets recycled, rather than skimmed off and sent to a landfill.
Which ties right into the compliance side of things.
Yes, compliance is huge.
The source points out that you have to verify your packaging is actually compatible with local waste streams, put clear disposal instructions right on the box, and ensure your labeling complies with regional regulations.
And that regional nuance is critical. I mean, a beautifully designed water-coated box that is easily processed by a recycling plant in California might just be incinerated or landfilled in a municipality in the Midwest.
Really? Just because of their local equipment?
Yes, if their local facilities aren't equipped to process that specific material blend, you have to design for the reality of the disposal infrastructure.
So what does this all mean? I really have to challenge the overarching premise here.
All right, let's hear it.
If using PCR, printing with water-based inks, and getting your FSC certifications is now just a standard baseline expectation across the entire beauty industry, I mean, how does a brand actually use it to stand out on a crowded shelf?
It's tough.
If literally everyone is doing it just to get in the door, is slapping a little green recyclable logo on the back of the box enough to win over a consumer anymore?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's absolutely not about the logo.
Really? Because you see those logos everywhere.
You do, but consumers are incredibly savvy to greenwashing now. They know a little green leaf icon doesn't actually mean anything by itself.
Right, it's just ink on a box.
Exactly. What builds actual defensible trust is verifiable transparency. It's the end-to-end traceability we talked about earlier. It's aligning the clean label values of the product's internal ingredients with the physical packaging that holds it.
So the outside has to explicitly validate the inside.
Exactly. Imagine a consumer buys a serum that claims to be pure, organic, and earth-friendly. But then it arrives wrapped in layers of unrecyclable foam, housed in a box slathered in heavy plastic laminate and solvent-based metallic inks.
Oh, yeah. That happens all the time.
It does. And the consumer feels the cognitive dissonance immediately. Their brain registers the hypocrisy, and the trust is broken right then and there.
That makes total sense.
Standing out isn't about shouting louder than the next brand that you are sustainable. It's about seamlessly proving it at every single physical touch point of the unboxing experience. The packaging has to be the physical manifestation of the brand's ethos.
That alignment is so crucial. If your brand promises simplicity in nature, your box mechanics have to deliver simplicity in nature.
Exactly. Everything has to tell the same story.
Well, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. We've navigated the structural physics of 24-point paperboard, the psychological transference of a heavy, rigid box, the agility of plate-free digital printing.
The rigorous math behind MOQs.
Yes, and the complex realities of building a pre-flight supplier's scorecard to ensure true, verifiable sustainability.
It is a lot to synthesize. But to move efficiently from this kind of theoretical evaluation into actual profitable production, the guide leaves us with a very clear, actionable roadmap.
Walk us through it.
First, you need to shortlist 3 to 5 suppliers who have explicitly demonstrated cosmetics experience and hold those credible FSC and ISO certifications.
Second, you have to demand detailed physical samples.
Yes, do not skip this step.
That means requesting actual artwork proofs and the raw material certificates. Do not just look at a pretty 3D rendering online and sign a contract.
Never do that. You need to feel the structural integrity and test the water-based coatings with your own hands.
What's the third step?
Third, Always pilot a small SKU set to stress test the supply chain before going all in. Use the agility of digital printing to your advantage here.
Start small, fail fast.
Exactly. And finally, use a rigid procurement checklist for sustainability and compliance, ideally leaning on a single contract manufacturing partner to consolidate your leverage and streamline the whole operation.
It is a phenomenal roadmap. It really takes the guesswork out of an industry that traditionally thrives on opacity.
It really demystifies the whole process.
But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a new idea to mull over. We've spent this entire session talking about how to optimize the manufacturing, the printing, and the disposal of wholesale cosmetic boxes.
Right.
But building on this concept of cradle-to-grave responsibility and true brand storytelling, what if the ultimate future of wholesale cosmetic packaging isn't a box you throw away or even a box you recycle?
That is an interesting pivot. Where does that lead?
Think about it. If sustainability is truly becoming the absolute baseline expectation, what if the next massive evolution is a permanent, heavy, luxurious vessel that you keep on your vanity forever?
Oh, wow.
What if we're moving toward a reality that shifts the entire industry away from a wholesale box model and replaces it entirely with a refill cartridge economy?
That would completely rewrite the rules of supply chain leverage, tooling costs, and the psychology of unboxing all over again.
Everything we just talked about would be turned on its head.
Yeah, the structural foundation wouldn't just be about transit anymore. It would be about legacy.
It absolutely would. And it's something every brand founder should be thinking about as they design their next launch.
Really profound stuff to think about.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking closely at the details, keep wondering how the systems around you are made, and keep questioning the products you see on the shelves. Until next time.